All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to today's Coalition webinar, Your Transfer Questions Answered. Many of you submitted excellent questions when you registered, and we'll address many of them as we go out through the presentation. You may also submit questions using the Zoom Q&A feature. If there's time, we'll address those at the end. So my name is Derek Terrell. I'm the Director of Member Engagement here at the Coalition for College. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Coalition, we're more than 150 colleges and universities with a proven commitment to access, affordability, and student success. And together we provide a set of tools called My Coalition to help students learn about, prepare for, and apply to college. Coalition schools demonstrate their commitment by providing reasonable financial aid and graduating students in a timely manner, including those who have been historically underrepresented in higher education. We work proudly together as a membership to share best practices to move higher education forward toward greater access and equity. So My Coalition is actually much more than an application and is designed to engage students as early as 9th grade by providing a locker, which is a free unlimited storage space for documenting what happens throughout high school, or in this case, even college. And it's mobile friendly and accepts files of any kind. The collaboration space makes it easy for you to add your counselor, advisor, or other trusted mentor as a contact and select files from your locker to share with them as well. The college list is where you will opt into information from schools and keep track of which schools you might want to apply to, and this can be easily shared through the collaboration space. So My Coalition also provides college advice directly from our member schools through My Coalition Counselor on our website, as well as virtual events like this one that you are attending tonight, so you can engage with member schools directly. So tapping into all the Coalition has to offer is very easy. You can go to mycoalition.org and create an account. And of course, you can follow us on Instagram at Coalition for College. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. We have an amazing group of panelists here today with us who are gonna share some of their knowledge and advice with you, as many of you are considering or planning on transferring at some point in the future. So I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves, and we'll kick it off with Brandon from Rice.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Mack. I'm an Associate Director of Admission and Coordinator of Transfer Admission at Rice University, located in the beautiful city of Houston, Texas, home to Beyonce, and yes, Rice is in formation.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Madigan. I serve as the Director of Recruitment Outreach here at beautiful Florida Southern College in Lakeland, Florida. I also serve as the Senior Associate Director of Transfer Admission, working with our STEM transfer students at Florida Southern. Just a quick note about Florida Southern. We were previously ranked as the #1 most beautiful campus in America by the Princeton Review, consistently in the top 10 every year in the nation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kathleen Abels. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Admission at Haverford College and have the privilege of also coordinating our transfer process. Haverford's a small liberal arts college outside of Philadelphia. And I'm joined here tonight by two rescue dogs, Granola and Yogurt. So appreciate sharing a little bit of my home with you all, and thanks for being here.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Taylor Holland. I'm one of the Associate Directors of Undergraduate Admissions for North Carolina State University, home of the Wolfpack. And we are located in the beautiful capital city of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'm also the Transfer Student Coordinator for the university for our Office of Undergraduate Admissions. And I guess a little fun fact, since Kathleen said it, I've got a couple of crazy cats that run around here, Tula and Whitmore. And if you see a tail running by the computer screen, please forgive me. I can't seem to control them. But anyway, glad to be here. Looking forward to this evening. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you all so much for those introductions. So as I mentioned before, we received a large number of questions from you all when you registered for the event. And it's clear that there are a lot of topics that are on the top of mind for a lot of you. So we've got those on the screen right now, and this is what we're going to try to cover in about the next 45 minutes. So we'll go ahead and get right to it. So one of the biggest topics that was submitted by a lot of you all was around academics and credit transfer. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask Kathleen, how much do GPA and grades matter in the transfer process?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Derek. think GPA is a tricky thing because different colleges, different high schools use different grading scales. So we're interested in looking at the courses you've taken and how you've done in them. But the sort of number of your GPA doesn't define you, right? We look at different trajectories and areas of growth and areas where you might be really strong. So it goes much beyond just sort of one number. Your transcript is really important, but oftentimes there's a lot of context that goes into our understanding of who you are and what that means for your ability to be successful on our campuses.
Awesome. So the next question that I wanted to ask, I'll go ahead and ask Joe. So one of the big questions is, how do transfer credits exactly work? Especially considering students have spent a lot of time, money, and effort earning those credits. So how would that actually work?
And this is very similar to what Kathleen had shared. It's going to be dependent upon really the college or university that you're looking to transfer into. Most colleges and universities are going to have really a minimum and a maximum number of credits that they're going to allow students to transfer into that school. The other piece of that too is not only the number of credits that a student would transfer, but how those credits will transfer. Because you talk about the time, effort, and energy that goes into earning those credits. You, I'm sure, as a student, want to have those count and not just count for basic courses or electives, having them count towards your academic degree programs, counting towards degree completion, understanding how those credits affect how long it's going to take you to get to that next degree as well. So whether that you already have an associate's degree coming in with a large number of college credits, or maybe you've been that student that now in the technology or the technical sense have swirled in between some universities. You've gone to a 4-year school, a 2-year school. Maybe you're from the military. You've had the opportunity to travel the world, taking some online classes from multiple schools. Most important thing I think you'll see for any of the colleges and universities you hear from tonight or in general you're looking at, just making sure that those credits are documented on an official college transcript you're going to send into a school so they could then be evaluated by that college or university based on that school's policies and procedures and their individual credit evaluators on those college campuses.
Awesome, awesome. So actually, one question that got submitted was about how will they be sure, though, that the credits that they took at a community college will actually successfully transfer? So what should a student do in order to make sure that whatever classes they've already taken will be counted? Could you give us a little insight into that, Taylor?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the colleges around the country are going to have what they call credit transfer list, and in a variety of different ways, but we call them credit opportunities where I'm at here. And so we make up these lists when students apply and supply the official transcripts to us as part of their application process. We've seen a lot. We've seen transcripts from over 3,800 colleges now. So we have a pretty extensive list, but do we know everything about every single school? No, we do not. So as the transcripts come in, if we've seen the course before, then we know whether or not it's a direct match, and they'll see these on, I'm sure, all of us in colleges all over the country, if not the world. You'll see how the courses come in, whether they come in as direct matches or they'll have come in as elective credit hours, or it might be too technical in nature based off of one of the technical degrees, very lucrative careers, by the way, but they may not come in for gen ed credits or general credits for a particular university. It just depends on the particular program. So that's why we need to see them and take a look at those. But with these credit lists for a student to do some what you call pre-evaluation, you can take a look at any college that you're considering and see what they've taken from your particular school, how they've come in, do they meet the particular school's transfer qualifications, because every school will have certain requirements for certain majors, or they might have general requirements, or they might have just a general admission. These are things that the student is going to need to check on when they are looking at a particular university or looking at the universities known for strong programs for what they want to do and producing strong graduates for what they want to do. But getting back to the list, to button that up, check these credit lists based on what you've taken. If you're at a community college taking the Associate of Arts, Associate of Science, Associate of Engineering transfer degrees, or the teacher education transfer degrees as well. They can see these lists of courses. A lot of states have agreements with their community college system as well as with 2+2 programs, 3+2 programs with other universities around the area also. And so just look for those extensive lists. And when in doubt, just contact the admissions office, the undergraduate admissions office as well. If not, even also the department advisors for the particular program that they're looking at. They're very familiar at every college and with the particular courses that are going to transfer in from, various areas. But the admissions office really should be your first point of contact, just to double check. Because like today, I had a few phone calls. They're saying, I don't see this course on the list, but I see that you take those courses. And a lot of that has to do with regional accreditation, which all of us have. And that's the highest accreditation you can have in the country for your area, region of the country. And you want to make sure that you are regionally accredited, coming from a regionally accredited school in most cases, going to a regionally accredited university, and double checking if the courses are not there. It could be that the college simply has not seen those courses. Do not fret. You will be the first student that brings that course to the university's attention while your application is being reviewed. The review committee, usually made up from registration records in a lot of cases, we'll take a look at that course and see how it's going to possibly come in. And because of you bringing it to our attention, you are responsible for getting that on that college's, that university's website for ever and a day. And so, but that's the best way to do it, is look for those credit evaluations for each university that you're considering and see what they know about the particular college that you're coming from.
Awesome, awesome. So a question for you, Brandon. So some of the folks who registered for this are returning adult learners who have been out of college for quite a while. Is there anything that they should do when considering transferring in?
Absolutely. The thing that I would say is that, and this is for everyone, but especially for our adult learners, is to really think about the environment of that particular institution and to make sure that it is going to be conducive for your particular needs. Because we all know every institution is very different in terms of how they structure the environment and the culture of that particular institution. Some are going to be more residential, so they would want you to be an integral part of that experience, which means living on campus. Some are going to be more commuter in nature, where you're able to kind of come and go, and that might be more fitting for your schedule. Also, another consideration to think about is the mode of education that is going to be offered within that particular institution. Some are going to be more, they want you to be in person, so they're not going to have as many online options or no online options at all, versus other institutions that will have more of those online options. So you really need to think about what's going to be the best fit for you in terms of your needs, and see if that institution lines up with the mode of education as well as the culture that's going to be really fitting for you and the environment that you're looking for.
If I could add one thing, Brandon says it beautifully, but there's one little thing I thought that I found really unique. A couple of students came to me recently in this time of pandemic and said to me, we know we're not doing campus tours, and so the tours are hard to come by, or they've got the self-guided tours, the virtual tours. Take advantage of those at the college websites to looking for that fit. I love the fact that Brandon said the fit, and because that is huge, because you can go to the #1 school in the world for what you want to do. And if you don't feel like you see yourself there, if it's not your home away from home, it may not be the best thing in your soul, and you may not perform your best. So a couple of students gave me some really good insight. Normally we say, come visit the campus when it's hustling and bustling, but a really good way to see if it fits is to go visit a campus like on a late Saturday afternoon when it's quiet, or even more so on a Sunday, and see if you can imagine yourself walking across the campus to the library, whether you live on campus or off, on a quiet Sunday morning, afternoon, and see how you feel about that. Because that fit is so important. Choosing a college that's known for strong programs and producing strong graduates for what you want to do, and moving on to graduate schools, med schools, law schools, Fortune 500s, that's very key. But that fit, that comfortableness, or that comfortable feeling is really key. And how comfortable are you walking across a very quiet campus, which I thought was a really unique take from, the period of time I've been doing this, you could say for a few minutes, that, it's really I never thought of it that way. And so a Sunday afternoon tour, even during a pandemic, because most campuses are open, for you to walk around, that can give you a really good insight as to, I see myself here. It's my home away from home. And that's really critical to your success with that particular school, any school.
I could add a little bit on the adult learner piece for just a moment as well. One of the things that I always like to mention, and Brandon mentioned this, as well as that mode of instruction that's there. Many colleges and universities now offer specific modes of learning for adult learners. They have that as their own option that's there, sometimes tied to the graduate admissions offer. So they may have their own adult online programs or in-person or hybrid. For the college and university I work with, we actually have specific programs designed for adult learners, and we're seeing this growing in popularity in high need areas or those areas that you may be seeking for degree completion in the right amount of time, in the mode of communication and instruction that works for you. If you're a working adult, if you have a family, how to get that degree completed in the right structure that you're looking for. So that may be another thing to be looking for is, does it match your needs? Including that fit and the opportunities, but does it also match your needs?
Awesome. So this question is a little specific though, but since you work as the transfer student coordinator, Kathleen, I'm going to ask you, one of the attendees asked a question about how a W, so a withdraw, would be perceived on their transcript. So can you give a little bit of insight? This particular student might be able to get it removed from their transcript. Is that something that they should consider?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for asking that. I think there's a sort of joke in college admissions that you can answer anything with "it depends." And this feels like a perfect moment for that. If you're able to get a W removed and it's not going to be cost or time intensive or prohibitive, then that seems like a process that may be worthwhile. But one thing that you can absolutely do that isn't going to be very time or cost prohibitive is tell us on your application about why you withdrew. The last thing you want is for an admission officer to read your application and feel like there are some unanswered questions. We know that life happens and there are times when you withdraw from a class because, for any number of reasons. So sharing a little bit about why that happened, if you feel willing, is a perfectly acceptable way to give us the context to sort of know that there's nothing that you're kind of hiding from us in that way.
Awesome, thank you. So the next question is going to go more along the applications and the admissions timeline theme that we have there. So for a student who might have graduated from high school pretty recently and then went to either a community college or another four-year institution, they wanted to know, is freshman year, is applying during your freshman year too early, or would be applying during junior year be too late? So I'll go ahead and shoot that over to Brandon.
So once again, as my colleague Kathleen says, it is going to depend. What I would generally say for those who are interested in transferring after their freshman year, it is probably best that you have at least one semester under your belt before applying, because that way we're able to once again see how were you as a student in high school. I know someone asked in the chat about that. You do need to submit your high school transcript because once again, it provides that baseline of who you are as a student, as well as it validates you graduating from high school. So once again, I would always say for those who are interested in transferring after their freshman year, make sure that you do get that one semester under your belt. So that way we're able to establish how are you performing as a college student. Now, for the individual who wants to transfer as a junior, it's going to once again depend on the institution that you're going to transfer to, because some institutions do have residency requirements in which they require that you have a certain number of credit hours from that school in order to graduate. So for example, at Rice University, we have a 60 credit hour residency requirement. So if you're coming in as a junior, you have to know that you will be at the institution for at least 2 years before you graduate. And that's once again also depending on how many credits will transfer, how they transfer, and things of that nature. So those are some of the considerations you need to think about when you put in your transfer application, is how are my credits going to be treated? How long is that going to be in terms of my degree plan? But know that we need as many grades as possible to really get a sense of your academic trajectory.
Yeah, and I guess I'll kind of throw this out to everyone as well, because Brandon mentioned having to submit that high school transcript. Is that the same across all of the institutions here in terms of high school transcript? And then also, would that also mean that a student who wants to transfer would have to submit a standardized test score, like an ACT or SAT?
For us, and probably a few others, I'm not sure, but I'll speak for us. If that first year, if they are in the first year and they want to do that, we do want to see a semester. So it would pretty much be a fall entry time, because we do take students, transfer students in the spring and in the fall. We do want to see a semester. We want to know what the class schedule is for, say, the spring term as well also, because we do have a 30 minimum transferable credit hour, or 45 credit hours if you're in a quarter system as for your school. We do like to see the final high school transcript. And we did a little bit of a unique twist. Before, we would always ask for the SAT score, ACT score, or both. Just send them all, we super score. Most people do. And but we did a little change with the COVID pandemic, that during a COVID related semester, we became SAT, ACT optional. And for the transfer students, if they're trying to transfer, especially now, this round of students who are freshmen at this current time, we're not necessarily going to ask for an SAT, ACT score. So that would be, we would just use the high school transcript just to kind of eyeball, give us a little bit more information academically, and other aspects that might be on that transcript, as well as what's on the application, as far as all the other questions that are asked, whether, short answer essays and any other items that are on there per institution for us. So it gives us a better idea if a student really does want to try and make that sophomore transfer move. Most of the time we'll see they may not get all of the requirements needed, and we might even guide them into the third semester transfer into the spring term. Just, middle of the sophomore year has been really very, very strong for a lot of our students as well, and has not really posed any kind of problem as far as getting the classes and the timing also. In fact, even for our College of Engineering outstanding unit of the outstanding founding father program of the university, it's been good for some students to be able to transfer and get in during the spring term to get certain things that were taught during that time. So it just depends on the university. And, Brandon mentioned that, it's 60 hours that you always need to be aware of every college that you're considering. For us, it's a 25% degree in residence rule in order to graduate from NC State University. But a couple of our programs can go into that 5-year term, depending on internships, co-ops, research opportunities that we offer all majors. So these are things that a student needs to ask their admissions reps at each of the universities about these opportunities, and when really would be the best time, because it can be very similar, but there could be some distinct differences as well that every student does need to know for the schools that they're considering.
I want to address this in an era of the COVID pandemic a little bit as well. There has been a tremendous shift, I think, among schools of going test optional. We see that nationally. I think there's a lot of flexibility among schools right now as well. I can speak for my school individually that we have had a large number of students who actually chose to defer their transfer as well, whether that be they wanted to see how things went in the fall semester. Maybe they actually took a year of college credit or almost close to that, didn't take anything in the fall semester, then wanted to transfer in a spring or a future fall, or only took one semester that's in there. I think the most important thing is it's going to be in the details, keeping that communication with the admissions offices that you're working with, understanding the requirements of the schools you're looking at. We're talking about residency requirements and some of those types of things, but I think also understanding that some programs may be space limited as well for majors or academics, things that they're looking at. And there may be some programs at some schools that will say, sure, come on in after a semester of college credit, or there may be a university that's saying, We would love to have more students who start in the spring semester to graduate in a different kind of time frame that's there. So it really does depend on the schools that you're considering, what your time frame is for transfer. And also, please know, in the current pandemic era that we're in, I think flexibility and the ability to pivot of our universities and work with students has been a key indicator of what's happening in college admissions overall.
Awesome, thank you. So one other question that that was submitted was, how different is the admissions process for transfer students versus first-year students? And is it any easier or harder to get in as a transfer student? And I'll let Kathleen take that since she's nodding.
Oh gosh, what a good question. So I think at best, this is a process that allows you to take a step back and say, who am I? What do I value? What kind of institution is going to allow me to become a better version of myself? And I think the more experience you've had, the more time you've been in your body, right? The better you know yourself. And so I think there are some ways in which, having more lived experience allows you to have a clear sense of the college or universities where you think you'll really thrive. So I think in some ways that transfer process can be easier because maybe you have a clear sense of direction of what you really love or what you really don't love. And either one of those can sort of help move you forward. In terms of sort of, whether or not it's easier to get in as a transfer student, I think that is going to depend on the institution. And the most important question that you should be thinking about is, do I think this is an institution that is going to support me, right? Going to support you academically, socially, if that's going to be part of your experience, and financially. And so, while certainly I know you all want to go to wonderful colleges and universities, admit rate does not determine whether or not a place is wonderful and is going to support you in all of those ways. So I'd more focus on what makes sense for you, and know that if you're choosing a school that aligns with your values and your interests, then the other pieces will fall in line as well.
Awesome. So I think that actually goes really well into the next question that was submitted. And it really is, what are you as admissions officers looking for in a transfer student? Not in their essay and then in their application as a whole. And I'll let Joe answer that one. I'll let him start off at least.
I think this could go in a couple of different directions. I think right off the bat is one of the first things that I'll look at for students, what academically is the student seeking? At least for my school, and I know for many of the schools, I've had a chance to work for several, we're going to look at that academic major that the student's choosing, and then also see if the coursework that they had taken previously aligns with that academic major they may be interested in, or does it align with some of the general education core requirements that surround that. We want to be able to have that student be successful in that program, and if it's a student that's really interested in an engineering major, have they completed some of the core classes, such as a physics or a calculus, and some of those just general core areas, how have they done in those classes? And then beyond that as well, I think what's important in the essay itself, when a student's applying, I love looking to see what are the goals that the student's hoping to accomplish? What are their dreams? What is the purpose of them seeking this actual degree? What is that end goal that they see in mind? And how can our school get them to that point? Or how do they see our school getting us to that end point? I love hearing from students who say, maybe I took a year off, I was trying to find myself, figuring things out. That's amazing that they had the opportunity to do so. Then gives them that direction to say, this is exactly what I know I want to do. I've seen several students that here in my school have said, I want to be a physical fitness trainer. I want to be a physical therapist. I see that you align with that. That's where I want to go towards. And that's how I found you as a school. That always impresses me when the student has done the research ahead of time and shares that as part of the application process. And I'll let my peers share as well.
Yeah, so I'll actually pass it over to Taylor because I want Taylor to add or to answer one additional piece of this. Would this be any different for someone who is a returning learner? So someone who's been out of school for 10, 15, maybe even 20 years?
No, not necessarily. We want to, regardless, non-traditional student in the age range or non-traditional out range, regardless of the background. What we want to see is a sincere interest in the program that they're applying for with us and others as well. A university wants to see that a student is really, Joseph said it best when I'm thinking of a million things right now that I want to say, but I'm trying to put it all into one word, one sentence. But the way Joseph said it, the academic alignment of the courses is going to be really good. Even for somebody returning from, they've been out of school for 10 years, 15 years, that there's something in there that you can see an interest academically as well. But there's also the part inside the applications. There's, those short answers and those short essays and the personal statements, they're in there for a reason, to see the sincerity and those goals that Joseph had mentioned. What's that dream? Where is it going? Or, and does it line up with what they see, in the academic preparation, whether it was, just recent, last semester, or if it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, is there some preparation there that you can match up to the student and see that it's a sincere interest? What I think I'm trying to really get to the point is we want to make sure that a student is not using another major that might have a little bit lesser requirements or lesser intense courses that are needed for transfer and using them as a backdoor, because a backdoor entry into a university for another program that the student is not really interested in, it does, I wouldn't say damage in a sense, but it does some backpedaling in a way, or a combination of damage and backpedaling, where you're coming to a new college and you're picking a program just to get your foot into the door of the college. Well, what if that college has where you are locked into that major for a semester or a year before you can ask for a major change? Or, what if you don't qualify for a major change based on your performance in a program that you don't really care for? So are you really going to perform that well? Some students might play it in a different way and do very well with that program. They're thinking, I do want this program. I'm going to do a double major. Make sure this college knows about this. The university knows about it that you're applying to, and that your advisors know this. Look, I came to this major, I qualified for this, but I do want to pick up something else as a minor, or I do want to pick up something else as a double major. These are hot topics these days to be competitive for the rest of your life after you've gone through college, whether that's undergrad, getting on to the master's, doctorate, grad schools, med schools, everything. It depends on that. Make sure the university knows what you want to do, but that they're, again, I can't not express the sincerity of what you write in your application to show and prove that university that, this is a dream. This is my goal. This is, what I want to do. When you see, and we can spot them. We can spot those back doors. We can. We've been, all of us here and a lot of people all over the country have been doing this a long time. And even the newer representatives, my newer colleagues in my office, they can spot it in the writing that, okay, they mentioned that they want to go into, say, a beautiful major of mathematics, but in their essay, they talk about they want to be an engineer or something, or vice versa, or they want to be a reporter, and yet they've chosen something that's in a whole different area, or something that might have a little bit of a lesser math requirement or something. It's just, it needs to be sincere. It needs to be solid, because you don't want to mess yourself up as a student, and you don't want to tear up a department that could have admitted another student that really wanted that department, really wanted that major, and you took that spot from that student, when there might be limitations per major on how many students that a department, a college inside the university can accept. So always, definitely, if you're going to change a school, or you're going to transfer into a school, make sure you're getting into the program that you want. And if you're not quite ready for it, get advice from that admissions officer to find out, okay, what is it going to take? I know I'm not quite there yet, but what is it going to take for me? What kind of plan can we come up with? I love creating plans and pathways for students, saying, okay, let's go to one of our partner community colleges in the state and take these particular courses. And that way you can get directly into your major and avoid a lot of angst or anxiety later on, and that you're on your path, because you want to hit the ground running for the major that you truly want to graduate with when you make that transfer.
Thank you, Taylor. That was really good advice. So each one of you has kind of touched on financial aid a little bit, and how that is going to look a little bit different. So Brandon, can you kind of tell us what the financial aid process is for transfer students, and maybe how that might be different in comparison to a first year student?
Sure. So it's going to, once again, and you're going to hear this a lot, it's going to depend on every institution. So the key thing is to do your research on each institution in terms of how they do financial aid. The number one difference is probably going to be the need-based versus the merit-based aid question. So need-based aid is going to be based off of your family's financial circumstance. Generally, what you submit for need-based aid is going to be the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Some institutions may require you to submit the CSS profile, which is available through the College Board website, or you may have to do some additional forms depending on that particular state and that particular institution. The key thing you want to see when it comes to need-based aid is how does that particular school package that need-based aid? Is it going to be mostly institutional money? If it's institutional money, that means that's generally money you don't have to pay back. If they're going to finance it primarily through loans, then you definitely want to be mindful of that because you will have to pay that back eventually. It may also be a combination of work study and other forms of aid, but you really want to ask that question of how do they make up their financial aid package. The other difference is going to be merit-based aid. So that would be your scholarships. Some institutions do not offer scholarships to incoming transfer students, where they do offer scholarships to incoming first-year students. So that's definitely going to be a very important question to ask. If they do offer scholarships, then you want to ask them, well, what are the qualifications for that? You may automatically and inherently be considered for every single merit scholarship, so you don't have to do anything different. Or they may say you do have a required process in terms of submitting an additional application, an additional essay in order to be considered for those merit scholarships. Now, the key thing, especially when it comes to merit scholarships and in general for this admission process, you want to be as detailed as possible in this application. You want to utilize every single opportunity to talk about yourself and what you specifically are going to bring to that institution, because all those different components make up the admission decision, even in a process where it is automatic or assured admission, where they say if you have this certain GPA, if you have this certain SAT score, have these certain qualifications, you automatically get in. But it's going to be all those details that generally are going to lead to especially scholarships, but also in the admission process. So key things when it comes to financial aid: do your research, ask the questions that you need to ask, especially when it comes to how is your education going to be financed, and then also making sure that you're putting as much information as possible for the institution to really determine how they're going to finance your education.
Awesome. Thank you. That was super thorough and helpful. We actually have a pretty diverse group of folks who registered and who are attending this. So there were some questions submitted about what financial aid might look like for a student with political asylum, as well as a DACA or undocumented student, in addition to students who might be considered international students. So I know I threw out a lot right there, but if one or more of you could kind of touch on one of those, that would be great.
Once again, the key thing is how is the institution going to define you as a student? So for our students who are asylees, who are international students, who are DACA recipients, you want to ask that question. So for example, at our institution, if you are an asylee or a DACA recipient, you're considered to be a domestic applicant. So that means that you would have, access to federal financial aid. We would package you in the same way that we would package domestic students. For our international students, once again, every institution is going to be different in terms of how they define what is an international student. So you want to ask that question. Generally, because of the fact that international students don't have access to federal student aid, they're going to be packaged in financial aid in a very different way, to where either the institution may not have financial aid, unfortunately, for international students. So therefore, you would have to pay for everything in order to attend that institution, or the institution may have financial aid for international students. So once again, it's a lot of questioning in terms of the definitions of how you're going to be classified as a student. And then that would relate to then what would your financial aid options be at that school.
There's also something else, where financial aid could have limitations for international students. And there's a lot of cases where there might be limitations in transfer scholarships period for domestic and international. This is something that the student wants to check with each university. Also, there's an interesting thing going on, where if a student may not be like a SILE, a DACA, may not qualify in some cases, depending on the school, depending on the state. You know, they may not qualify for financial aid. They still might qualify for certain specialized scholarships at particular institutions as well. So this is, again, there's a wide variety of combinations here that the students need to be very aware of to make sure that it's very important to check on this. I think Brandon said it beautifully, and really not much more to add to it other than that in cases of where financial aid may not be available, that institution could have scholarships that are available to that student, excuse me. And then also some institutions that may not have that federal aid available may have private funding available for some kind of federal aid like funding. So definitely just each institution is going to be a little bit different. It just depends on what is available, how they have their system set up. So that's why it's just very critical for that student to really research this with each institution that they're considering.
Yeah, so it really seems like I'm hearing a lot that students who are considering transfer really need to do a lot of research. So it really isn't just throwing out applications to 100 schools. It's really spending that time on the front end doing some really hard research to really narrow it down to a group of schools that might be a good fit for them. So that's really awesome. Thank you.
And a lot of these answers are available through the admissions office or just a simple call to the financial aid office. In some cases, the financial aid office also doubles as the scholarships office as well, where they work directly with a scholarships office if it is two separate entities on a campus. So these are really just, if you can't necessarily find it easily on a website, it's easy to, just make a phone call, because even during these times, we're all hooked to our computers, whether we're very few people in an office, most people working from home, switching back and forth, whatever it might be. But there are people answering the phones for all the different offices across the country in all the different universities and colleges and community colleges as well. But sometimes it's just a simple phone call away to get this information. It may not, sometimes the term research might scare people off, but when you're looking at it is a research project for the betterment of yourself. Make those phone calls. There are people there that are very willing to give you the full inside details for that particular institution.
So I'm sure that all of you all have read a lot of transfer essays, and I've seen that a couple of those questions have come in the chat as well. So let's move on to talking about essays a bit. So Joe, what's the most important thing admissions officers want to know when reading a transfer essay? Is it what drives the student, why those things interest them, and how those things led them to want to transfer, or is it something else?
We've said the magic answer, which is it depends. Sometimes with the students here tonight, here's what I like to say about essays. It just needs to have a voice that's sincere coming from the student that gets across the message that you're hoping to get across that's there. I'm gonna steal a quote from a peer, Brandon here. I noticed that he had answered a question tonight, and for essays, what's one of the most important things you can do, be personable and make sure that the information and how you're addressing it is to that specific school. One of the biggest mistakes that I will see, and I'm sure all of us can see here, we're starting to kind of even talk about this, is I am so looking forward to applying to X school, and it's not your school's name as you're reading the application as an admissions counselor. So those simple types of things, just really making sure what you're sharing, what you're talking about. You'll hear this even as students are applying as high school students. You have those old English teachers. I'm one of those previously myself that would say, have a voice in what you're talking about, have a purpose, have a voice. Start with what you're hoping to accomplish and then give some stories and give some examples behind that. I want to feel like when I'm reading an essay from a student that I'm having a conversation. Just because of the volume of number of applications that students are applying to schools now, we don't have that opportunity just to sit down and have that 20-minute conversation or 10-minute conversation. So think of the essay as the admissions counselor right in front of you, having that conversation face-to-face, getting to know you. what would you want to share for them? Is it why you're looking to change that path? Is it something specifically that happened in your life that now has driven you toward this new decision? Is it someone that's encouraged you, whether it be a family member, a friend, a counselor, a teacher? We love hearing that my admissions counselor is a great resource and they've been amazing. You don't need to do that in an essay that's there, but just saying some of those opportunities that are there to talk about you. Make sure, love that. You are the star of your essay. It should be about you and really what you're looking for so that we can get to know you.
Awesome. So serving as the one of the transfer student coordinators, Kathleen, is there something that you look forward to while reading a transfer student's essays? And then also, I'm not sure how many of you all have optional essays or short responses as a part of your transfer application, but how crucial are those?
Yeah, great questions. So what do I look forward to when reading an essay? So I usually save the essay for the end of the application. I look at your transcript and your letters of recommendation, and then turn to really getting to hear from you directly, right? We hear what other people have to say about you, but it's really great to hear from you. And what I sort of love about saving the essay for the end is oftentimes that can be sort of the piece that really confirms all of the other aspects of your application. Like Joe said, right? It feels like you're having a conversation with you, and that can really sort of all of the threads that we heard before. It's really a wonderful sort of exclamation point to that. So I think that advice that Brandon gave is so spot on. Give us a sense of who you are and what you value and what that looks like, and how you choose to tell that is really going to depend. School specific essays matter. We know your time is valuable. We wouldn't ask you to do something that isn't going to help us understand who you'll be as a member of our community. You don't need to spend hours on each of these essays, but as we're talking about, right, it's important to do your research. We know you're spending an enormous amount of time getting to know our colleges and universities, and this essay is your way of showing us that. So just see this as a great way of articulating, you've done all of this research. Now, why is this place a place that you think you'll thrive? And it doesn't have to be, the most beautiful thing you've ever written, but a genuine school-specific essay can really make a huge difference in allowing us to see who you'll be on our campus. Absolutely.
Don't leave anything blank. Don't do that. Just fill it out. Because, well, a colleague of mine said, it's not my words, but a colleague of mine said it's like they threw us a bone or something, or something along that line. Those applications are built with a lot of people, a lot of people's input, and there's a reason those questions are in there, and it's to help the student make sure that the fit is there for the student as well. We're not making that ultimate decision. That's ultimately up to the student. But the essays are there for a reason. And I love the star of the show that Joe said, that it's so true. I had the honor of reading the best college essay in my period of time that I've been doing this. I'm not going to tell you how long, I'll give away my age. But anyway, this just a couple of months ago, and it was amazing. It took me back to, and she was the star of the show, Joe. She really was. And it been somebody who had pretty hard time. I mean, stellar academics, stellar, but the essay, which it brought tears to I'm getting a little choked up right now thinking about it, but it took me back to a scene in Forrest Gump when Forrest was walking with the love of his life, Jenny. It was almost like that scene when they saw the old house, and it was about her approaching her old house in a sense. And there'd been some hard times, but beautifully written, beautifully from the heart. And we can tell when something comes from the heart. We've read a lot of these. We have read a lot of them. And man, I showed it to a couple of my colleagues in the office, and they got in, they were just like, whoa, that was something. And it wasn't even that long. It was not 5 pages. It wasn't even 3 or 2. It was just 1 page. And she said a million words worth of stuff in her thoughts right there. It was absolutely amazing. So just say it from the heart, fill out the application, tell it like it is, tell us about yourself. That's all we're asking.
Joe, I have a question for you. This goes a little bit to like the timeline. Is there a difference? But so let's say that your deadline is April 1. Is there any difference if I apply the night before or 2 weeks prior as a transfer student?
I'm going to put my personal perspective on this, and then I'll kind of put the admissions hat on this. Early bird gets the worm. I think that is so important. If you know you're looking to transfer and you already have that in mind, why wait? Why wait until that last time frame? And that I know that our Gen Z students and even our millennials and then our adult population students, sometimes those deadlines are like, oh, I got to get it done right on that deadline. Having it done a little bit earlier on may have some advantages, depending upon the college or university. Some of those may include, let's say a college or university is a rolling admission school, meaning that they are going to go ahead and start reviewing that application as soon as it comes in, and they're going to get you a decision within a shorter amount of time. So if you wait to the deadline, you may be competing against more students applying at that same time frame and that same deadline date that's there. It may give you a more of an advantage to get an earlier decision, get your credits evaluated, get your financial aid information, have everything you need in a tightly wrapped bow to say, this is everything I need to make my college decision in a shorter time frame by applying a little bit earlier. I mentioned the words space limited. That's the other key piece I want to mention here too. Some programs, well, let's say this is our deadline, have things in by that. If it's a space limited program, that means there's only a certain number of seats that are available within that academic major. And they're really looking in those academic majors for students who not only meet all the requirements to go into that as a transfer student, but also that's where that early bird gets the worm is going to really take effect. If you're an earlier applicant, you have everything completed you need and you're ahead of the game of getting things done, that seat may be given to you compared to a student who applies significantly later in the process. There can be definite advantages on the admission side, and then I'll wrap this into financial aid as well. Scholarships and financial aid, sometimes it's limited to a certain number of students, and when some of these academic scholarships or programs are gone, they're gone. That's there. Here, I'm in the state of Florida. There is a state need-based grant called the Florida Student Assistance Grant. There's a certain amount that's given to schools. Once the schools have met that criteria of that need-based aid, they give it to the amount of students that they can. They can't give it to any more students. So they've given it to the students who've applied earlier, done everything that they need to do earlier on in the process. It is a great advantage to apply earlier than later for students. Now, not everybody has that figured out. Maybe it's late in the game that you decide you want to transfer, and that's why we have these deadlines and timeframes. However, if you know that ahead of time, you've done your planning, you get your applications in, your documents, financial aid, that can be a great advantage to students.
I have one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful what you said, Joe. Awesome. Applying early, waiting until that deadline. A lot of schools will set up an account for you, an application account. And if you wait till if you apply early and you're coming from say 2 or 3 schools and one of the transcripts does not come in and they communicate with that account through personal email addresses are best for your college applications, not school email addresses, just a little firewall, scenario that can happen with particular schools or schools that you're coming from going to another school. Use a personal email address in the application. However, the point was applying early allows the college before the deadline, the application deadline, to contact you. Go ahead and get your account set up and get contact you saying, hey, you've been to 3 schools. One of these transcripts has not come in. If you wait till the very end to apply and then the deadline's passed and they're getting their package, they're getting their reading done, they're getting it, everybody's reading their areas, or they're in their second read or third read or the audit read of the applications to make sure that they've shaped and formed and picked their class of qualified applicants, and they've contacted you and you didn't get that transcript in on time. That can mean the difference between an admissions or a denial or a defer letter or a space available basis letter, basically. So Joe's hitting it right on the mark, that applying the early allows the college to get in touch with you earlier in case something is not quite right with the application, or there's a question that needs to be asked, or a transcript has not come in. Because if you wait till midnight that night, 11:59 on February 15th, when there's a deadline and you submitted it, it's going to be a week, 2 weeks before some colleges are going to get that account set up. And then they're going through the process and they've got to get applications out on a notification date, or maybe, as Joe said, rolling admissions. You know, there's a lot of varieties of notification dates and rolling admissions, and that college has sent you a message or two, you missed one possibly. And it could mean that, well, we didn't get this transcript in time. You're on a waiting list right now. So absolutely apply early for many different reasons.
I forgot one thing that I wanted to mention, and I see this now for transfer students, and just very quickly, you don't have to wait till all of your grades are generally finalized, especially if you are applying after you're going to have your associate's degree. Colleges and universities are generally going to be reviewing your application with coursework in progress. So I see that is a common misstep for students, that they're saying, well, I'm going to wait until I'm done with everything and then I'm going to send it. But if you already have 3 semesters of work or 2 semesters of work and you have work in progress, know that a college or university, generally, not all schools, some schools will want to see everything you've completed that's there, and then you'll definitely have to send everything after you finish that up if admitted to that school. We're reviewing applications with coursework in progress. So I want to mention that because that's also going to help you in completing and fulfilling those deadlines and timeframes.
Oh, thank you. So we have just under 5 minutes. So I'm going to ask one quick question to Brandon, one to Kathleen, and then one quick one to everyone to wrap us up. So one question that I'm going to throw out to Kathleen, do colleges even care about the activities that students do in college when they transfer? And then also, does membership in Phi Theta Kappa matter?
Yeah, great questions. So the first answer is, we're interested in who you are and what you value, right? We think your time is valuable. How you choose to spend your time tells us a little bit about what you value. There's not a right way to spend your time. There's some wrong ways to spend your time. Don't tell us about that. But generally, right, giving us a sense of the ways in which you're engaging in community is really important. And there was a question in the chat that I really appreciated. Someone asked about family responsibilities or jobs, right? Those are absolutely aspects of your experience that you should be including in these applications. If you're translating for family members, if you are taking care of younger siblings or older relatives, please make sure to include that. So yes, it's great to see about the clubs organizations you're involved in, because that tells us what you care about, but also make sure you're including those sort of personal or family responsibilities that we know can be enormously time intensive. That is in some ways more impressive, the commitment you have to your family, than any list of awards and honors. It tells us about how you contribute to communities that matter to you.
Awesome. And then a question for you, Brandon. So this is life post-transfer. So once a student gets onto one of your lovely campuses, what do you think is an essential attribute that is vital for a transfer student to be successful once they get to a 4-year college?
So as has been mentioned earlier, is that being on a campus and being a part of a college is a very important part of your success. You want to feel that you are a part of that community. So what I generally recommend for students after they've been admitted is to definitely investigate and find your space in that campus. So that means trying out different organizations. That means talking to your fellow transfer students when you come together for orientation. It is reaching out to your academic advisors. It's talking to professors and getting to know your departments, because if you feel that connection, you're going to feel that support that's going to lead to your success. And that's what we want for when you come to our colleges and universities. So definitely after you get that admission letter, you are now a part of that community. Feel free to get invested in that community by finding where's going to be your place and your space at that college or university.
Awesome. So we are right at the hour, but I would love to just hear one quick piece of advice from each of you all, as a lot of these students are navigating this transfer process in a very in a time that's very unprecedented. Is there one piece of advice that you could give them before we log off tonight? And I guess we'll start with Brandon. I saw the hand raised.
Number one, don't be afraid to ask questions. Okay, I know this was just an intro to this process, and there's a lot of nuances for a lot of different institutions. So that's why you're going to have a lot of questions, and that is perfectly fine. Don't feel that you're bothering us because you are not. We're here to help you. So please, my biggest piece of advice is make sure you get your questions answered.
I'll pass it over to Kathleen. Across my screen, sorry.
Great. I love that piece of advice. I think be good to yourself, be kind to yourself, and know ultimately whatever decision you receive, whether it's the one that you were hoping for or not, is not a reflection of your self-worth or your value, that you're going to wind up at a place that is wonderful for you. So be good to yourself and remember that throughout the process.
Alrighty, and Joe?
Actually gonna do two tips here. One, going back to the question you had about Phi Theta Kappa, membership can have its benefits in Phi Theta Kappa, as many schools offer PTK scholarships. If you are in Phi Theta Kappa, this is a real thing. You're in the Honor Society at a community college. Many universities are going to see you as that top star student that they're looking to enroll at their colleges and universities. I know we do that for my university. Many schools will offer that. We want to value you in the financial opportunities and also the academic success you're going to have. And that's going to line into my next tip. Do not ever let sticker price scare you away from a college or university. College affordability is based on what you can afford, not what you see as a sticker price. Just because a school has a bigger sticker price than one school than another, you never know what you're going to get in financial aid until you apply and send your documents. The schools are looking for things individually, and they're going to reward you as an individual in college affordability and price tag.
Just some stuff from the heart. Be honest with yourself. You know, just find your niche. Don't be afraid to ask the questions, as been mentioned before. Tour the campuses, even during these times. It's different. I picked my school back in the day from a print brochure. I think the first time I ever saw my college was the day I went there for summer orientation. And I mean, you got to go with it was a gut feeling. And so go with your gut feeling when you're looking around, when you're doing your research. You've got so many tools that you can use as well. Also, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to talk to alumni who've gone to these universities as well. They can be an immense resource, more than you can find on a social media, more than you can find in a print brochure or even on a campus tour. You know somebody who knows somebody that will talk to you about these particular colleges and universities that you're considering. So just be completely honest with yourself. And then again, I think taking that walk by yourself means so much, or with a family member or friend that that's in your bubble right now. But and in the future when we can be a little bit more moving about a little bit more freely, but definitely just don't try to trick yourself into accepting a place. Choose what's right for yourself. Again, there's a lot of number one programs out there, but there's a lot of great programs that go along with that also have a strong program for what you want to do. So you don't necessarily have to go to if you go to the nation's number one college for what you want to do and it's the perfect fit for you, hey, good for you. Good on you, mate, as they say in Australia. I've got an Australian friend that says that to me all the time. And it's rubbing off. But as long as you're going to a school that's strong for what you want to do and you feel that fit, that really, I cannot stress that enough. And students come back to me at graduation time and they're like, that was one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten was from you. So that's why I say that in these forums, and just, and enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride, seek out the opportunities, seek out the research opportunities, the internship opportunities that can end up as job offers and co-op opportunities for your major. Always take advantage, and that sounds weird, but take advantage of your department and their opportunities that they're going to offer you while you're there, and seek out those clubs and organizations or work possibilities also. But just enjoy the ride, learn, and it's your college experience, and it could continue on with more degrees, but just it's part of it's just part of your journey. It's not when I get here, when I get there, when I get this, when I get that. It's a part of your journey, and you want to make it one of the best journeys as well. So just always be true to your heart, true to your soul, and it'll all work out. It really will. It'll all work out. If not, there's always transfer. So there you go. So.
All right, I just want to give a huge thank you to Taylor, Joe, Kathleen, and Brandon for joining us tonight and sharing this awesome information with our attendees. Also, a huge thank you to our attendees for joining and submitting these incredible questions. A link to this session will actually be sent out in the coming week to the address that you registered with. But thank you once again, and have a good night, everyone. Bye.